Welcome into college football now, folks. I'm your host, James Yoder, with some breaking news. Notre Dame head football coach Brian Kelly is now going to be the LSU head football coach. A number of media outlets, but we'll pull up Pete Thamel, longtime college football national columnist, says sources, LSU is expecting to hire Notre Dame's Brian Kelly as the school's next football coach. An announcement could come as early as tomorrow. This started leaking out this afternoon, and it seems that some folks had a heads up on it because they did the old LSU is targeting, and from what we've seen in recent coaching searches, that means they have a deal basically kind of agreed to. Now they're just tying up the loose dots, and these reporters are just waiting for the go-ahead to put this news publicly. So with Brian Kelly moving on to LSU, as mentioned there, expected to be announced officially on Tuesday. But we put our heads together, talked to some college football experts, agents, athletic department insiders, and have put together a list of our top 10 candidates that we think are most likely to be the next Notre Dame head football coach. But I want you guys to give me down in the comments your one-word reaction to this hiring of Brian Kelly, the Notre Dame head coach, the head coach that has led them to the college football playoff in 2018 and 2020, the national championship game in 2012, and a record, I was going to pull it up, he's been their head coach since the 2010 season, so 12 seasons at Notre Dame, folks. Prior to that, he was at Cincinnati, Central Michigan, and Grand Valley State. At Notre Dame, he has led them in going backwards, starting with this year, going backwards, 11-1, 10-2, 11-2, 12-1, 10-3. Had that really bad season of 4-8 in 2016 that he had to deal with, but he is 92-39, although that does include a vacated season, quite a few vacated wins. So I'll get his exact record, not counting the vacated wins. Put it down in the comments and the description of this video. All right, let's jump into it. Give us your one reaction, but here is my number 10 candidate, and it is Jacksonville Jaguars head coach Urban Meyer. Now, you might say, James, that's ridiculous. That's not a realistic candidate. But we've been hearing since 2004 when Urban Meyer left from Utah to go to Florida, when he was rumored to be the Notre Dame coach at that point, that they thought they had him in the bag, that this is Urban Meyer's dream job. Some people say, well, Ohio State always was. Remember, he coached at Notre Dame under, I guess it was under Bob Davie, in the early 2000s, 2000, 2001 season or so, since before he went to Bowling Green in 2002 and 2003 to be their head coach, was wide receivers coach at Notre Dame. And some people said, hey, look, he wants to go back there. He stayed 2 years at Bowling Green, went to Utah for a couple of years, and then there was a bidding war after the 2004 season between Florida and Notre Dame. Florida was willing to give him what he wanted, and Notre Dame was not willing to concede on academic-related things on getting kids into college. So keep an eye out for that one. He's having a really tough first year in Jacksonville and never potentially thought that this job would come open, given that Brian Kelly had been there for so long and had things rolling. Number 9. Right, it's not nearly as hot of a candidate had this been 2 years ago or so, and that is Minnesota Golden Gophers head coach P.J. Fleck. I think this is one that number 10 is kind of like the pie-in-the-sky, wild candidate that not everybody considers to be a realistic person. Sometimes with these coaching lists, number 9 is, well, we want to make sure we get the candidate right. If they strike out on some of these folks we'll talk about here coming up soon, P.J. Fleck could be your man. This next one you're going to say, we're crazy, but how crazy are we? And that is Dabo Swinney, the head coach at Clemson, who's won 2 national titles, 2016, 2018. And with what we've seen in just the past 24 hours, Lincoln Riley leaving a top 10 job to go to USC, all right? Notre Dame head coach leaving there after 12 seasons and going to LSU, a top 10 job. Maybe some people could say the most prestigious job in all of sports, leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU. All right, is it really that inconceivable that Dabo would say, okay, cool, I've been at Clemson forever. I've done all I can do. We've had a down year. He's still a young guy. I believe he's in his early 50s. Is it that crazy to consider after we've seen Oklahoma's coach leave to go to USC and Notre Dame's coach leave to go to LSU in just about a 24-hour period? Lincoln Riley was announced at USC in a press conference this afternoon. So I don't think it's that crazy to consider. I think they would be fool to not at least reach out and see if it would be an interesting fit for them. Number 7, maybe it doesn't fit culturally. I think some people think, hey, this is maybe a interesting character and has had some personal issues, etc. Elaine Kiffin, great turnaround at Ole Miss, right? Second season has them in the top 10, 10-2 record, second place in the SEC West. Not a perfect fit, right? But if you want a guy who can come in there and win, Lane Kiffin could be your guy. There's a reason why he was a top candidate at LSU, at Florida. Didn't really seem to entertain those jobs as much, at least as much as we thought that he would. But keep an eye out for Lane Kiffin if they miss on some of these candidates that we'll talk about here coming up. Next up, also I'm not sure how much of a fit it is, not from a personality perspective in a lot of ways. Mario Cristobal, the head coach at Oregon. Why do I say he's a great candidate but probably not the right fit? It's because of the recruiting. Unless Notre Dame changes their academic standards for athletes they didn't do 17 years ago with Urban Meyer, I don't know if Mario Cristobal, who's rumored to be one of the 2 or 3 best recruiters in the game, right up there with Nick Saban. He learned from Saban. He's got a recruiting machine going on at Notre Dame, and Oregon, if he can't get those same candidates into school at Notre Dame, he would probably say, I'm good. I'll wait for a school, either stay at Oregon or wait for a school that will let me get the guys I need to get into school. Notre Dame, Stanford, sometimes Michigan, a few other schools have a little bit higher academic standards, or at least they claim to, than other jobs that a guy like Cristobal could potentially take. Folks, before we get into our top 5, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. It's Chat Sports. We will have the live college football playoff top 25 rankings coming up on Tuesday, 6:45 Eastern, right here. We have them the same time you get them on ESPN through TV, so you don't have to take up the TV, watch on your iPhone, watch on your computer. Hell, put us up on your smart TV here on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Chat Sports TV. We'll have this video on Tuesday. Then coming up Sunday, we'll have the final college football playoff top 4, all the New Year's 6 bowl announcements, and every single bowl matchup for the 2021 college football season. Let's get into my top 5, and these 5 and 4 are candidates of the same ilk. Tommy Reese, the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. Folks, he is only 29 years old, but I had some Notre Dame insiders tell me today he is the guy that Notre Dame fans, administrations have marked as the successor to Brian Kelly. Many fans thought that'd be 5, 6, 10 years down the road. 29 years old, but is their offensive coordinator. They haven't been necessarily lighting it up from an offensive perspective, but you saw what they did with Jack Cohn, Wisconsin quarterback, came to Notre Dame, led them to an 11-1 season. Marcus Freeman, a little bit older, a little bit more success in some regards, and has had a few more stops. Should be seen as a coaching candidate for a lot of schools from a maybe non-Power 5 program. Maybe take a job like Akron. Hell, could go to Cincinnati if another coach were to leave that we'll talk about here in a second. He was the D coordinator at Cincinnati. This is his first year at Notre Dame. So he doesn't have what Reese has, which is went to school there, like Tommy Reese did, played quarterback, and has a very strong relationship both with the alumni, the athletic department, and the departing head coach, Brian Kelly. But he is certainly a candidate for a number of head coaching jobs in his own right, seen as one of the top defensive minds in all of college football. Right. Look, if you take your offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator right now, I think in an average year, normal year, people might say, all right, we've got the next rising star in college football in Marcus Freeman, in Tommy Reese. Although at 29 years old, he might be one of the youngest coaches in college football history to take over, a Power 5 level program. But with what's happened in the last 24 hours, with Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma, and with now Brian Kelly going to LSU, if you hire your offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator with no head coaching experience, I think that will seem as like a disappointment, and that Notre Dame tried for a lot of these other guys on this list and struck out across the board. So we'll see what they do when this is officially announced by LSU tomorrow. If they name an interim, they're still in the college football playoff hunt, folks. With a loss here or there, Alabama loses to Georgia. We'll see what happens with Michigan, Iowa, etc. Cincinnati can lose. Notre Dame could be in the college football playoff, which comes on Sunday, with the final announcement Sunday, with an interim head coach. How crazy would that be? But let us know, folks, in the comments. Head down in the comment section here on Chat Sports YouTube. It's College Football Now. Let us know who will be the next head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We want to know what you guys think. I'm guessing we won't know the actual answer for a matter of weeks. It seems like it takes about 2-3 weeks for a lot of these schools to make their coaching search, coaching hire. Let us know down in the comments. Number 3 on our list is a very hot candidate historically, but has kind of cooled off after he had a less than stellar season this year at Iowa State, and that is Matt Campbell. A year ago, he would have been the number 1 choice. I agree, him or the guy we'll talk about come up here at number 1. Didn't have the year, top 10 season coming in, didn't have the top 10 finish like many had predicted. Now, a lot of his guys are taking off to the pros right now. He might not have the team coming back, a top 15, top 20 team coming back next year. So if he's going to jump, didn't do it for USC if they called him, didn't do it for LSU at Florida if either of those jobs called him, I could see Matt Campbell potentially saying, hey, I'm a young guy in my early 40s. Notre Dame is the spot for me. Always rumored that Michigan and Ohio State were his top 2 jobs. Grew up in the state of Ohio, played at Mount Union. If not those 2 jobs, Notre Dame is the other cream of the crop job in the Midwest for any coach who grew up there like Matt Campbell did. Number 2, folks, might surprise you, but I don't think it's not realistic. I think it's kind of crazy to think about, but not in the realm of things we just said with Dabo Swinney, is coaches are leaving top 10, top 5 jobs for other top 10, top 5 jobs, right? There's no buyouts. There's no non-compete clause. I guess there's buyouts. There's not really any non-compete clauses. If Notre Dame has the money and wants to target him, making him, I don't know if this is feasible, but we put together who are they going to go after, a combination of best candidate, most realistic. Ryan Day just lost his first Big Ten game 48 hours ago, folks, to Michigan. Now some of the shine's starting to come off him, and there's some rumors, I don't know how substantiated are, that he's a very religious guy, matches with Notre Dame, and that he grew up on the East Coast, that Notre Dame was the school that he, in a lot of ways, growing up on the East Coast, you don't have a traditional football power there. Notre Dame was a team that he followed growing up. You never know. I've never heard him talk publicly about Notre Dame, but I could see them coming after him, making him an offer, and him saying, you know what, maybe I'll take it. I doubt it happens, but again, nothing crazy. Nothing can surprise me at this point in college football based on what we've seen recently. And number 1 should be pretty obvious. Cincinnati's football program has produced a lot of great coaches in the past 15 or 20 years. Mark D'Antonio went from Cincinnati to Michigan State, had a wonderful career, 13, 14 years there. Brian Kelly went from Cincinnati to Notre Dame and has had a hell of a career there. Now he's on to LSU. How about their coach now, Luke Fickell, has got them undefeated, will likely be number 4 in the college football rankings again on Tuesday. With a win this week in their conference championship game, he will have Cincinnati. Yes, I said it. Cincinnati in the college football playoff. That game does not take place until December 31st, the semifinal. So, if he is the candidate, would he do one of 2 things? Would he tell Notre Dame, I'm your guy, just sit on it for 4 or 5 weeks? I guess it's over a month now, folks. It would be 32 days until that would happen. That's tough to believe that would happen unless they had some ironclad agreement that was like a handshake of all handshake. My word is as strong as oak type of agreement. But we'll see what happens there. Or does he leave Cincinnati while they have a college football playoff berth ahead of them and take another job? Would they let him coach out? Would they let him stick around and coach? Would he want to do that with National Signing Day being 2 weeks from Wednesday? It will be wild to see. But I will say this, folks. Notre Dame needs to hit a grand slam. They need a grand slam hire in the new landscape of college football with name, image, and likeness, with transfers, not having to sit out 1 year. Coach like Lincoln Riley thinks he can go to USC, grab a few players out of the transfer portal, some of his own players at Oklahoma themselves, and bring him to USC with him, turn it around in 1 year or 2 years. You saw what Elaine Kiffin recently did. Hell, you saw what Mel Tucker did at Michigan State, pulling guys out of the transfer portal, including a Heisman Trophy candidate running back in Kenneth Walker III. The Irish need to do the same here. I hope for their sake and their fans' sake they don't just settle on giving it to the next offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator and go after some of the biggest names in college football like we've listed here. But I want to ask you guys this question. Are there any candidates you missed that you're either hear pundits and scribes and blog boys talking about that we missed? Let us know below. Who did we miss in our top 10 list? And if you think we're crazy, that's never going to happen, James. That's not possible. He would never go there. Let us know in the comments. Let the comment wars ensue because this is now. We're only 2 days into it, the craziest college football offseason of all time. And folks, it's not even technically the offseason, although the regular season's over. We're in playoff, we're in conference championship mode. It'll be wild to see. Comment below. We'll be back with more on this story on Tuesday. Until then, hey, enjoy your college football.